President. Guys, what would if I said to you the next high growth explosive category in real estate? We've worked it out and we've got the data to support it. Stay tuned. We're going to tell you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak, episode 1579. Massive growth for units on the horizon. We've looked at the data. We've talked to the consultants. We've spoken with the analysis. We've done the research, the deep dive. We've cracked the code where the next money hit is. Mark, tell us all about it.
Yes, we've solved the Rubik's Cube within seconds. And we tell people this all of the time.
And the meaning of life is this.
And this is it. We've worked it all out. Yeah. But it's very interesting. Look, when we're on the ground and we are talking to so many buyers and so many sellers, we're an agency of 50 people. So we're highly transactional. And I've got to say the thing people seek the most is shelter, with us, and they want to rent something and they want to buy something. But that's pretty obvious. The not obvious is, hey, Mark, what should I buy? You've been around. We've observed, 2,000 landlords and tenants making transactions. Now, when it comes to the landlords, we've observed the ones that have done particularly well and how they've done particularly well over the years. Now, the one definite thing is it's hard work. To do well from residential and commercial property. It's commitment. It's loyalty to your asset, and holding it over a longer period of time. But the type of asset class is also equally as important. Actually, what you buy and where you buy can make a massive difference to your investment over a long-term period. So if you're buying it for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, if you buy one asset compared to the other asset, they could vastly perform differently. We've watched it. We've shared that knowledge with our landlords.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of not timing the market. It's time in the market. And that's what a lot of the data shows. Now, I think one thing that I'm looking at a lot of this information, which is quite good to see, where you always, so for example, some of the data that we're looking at the last 10 years of growth between houses and units, and looking at Dee Why and then looking at Manly. So in our Northern Beaches bubble, Manly would be the most premium suburb. And a lot of the time, if people want to live there and they said that's I can't afford it, but I don't want to buy elsewhere because that's going to have the better growth, because that's Manly. Now, if I bring up this data of, let's start with Manly's 10-year growth market.
Manly's good, probably a great representative of most beachside CBD suburbs in Sydney. So, your Bondi, your Tamarama, your Bronte, your Queenscliff, your Dee Why, your Collaroy.
Yeah, so where's the camera there? You've got basically a median price of 4.4 million with 105% growth. So if you bought for $2 million 10 years ago, that's now worth $4 million, which is absolutely amazing. Now let's go. Now let's
5%, double and a bit. Double and 5%.
Now look at Dee Why 10 years. Here's Dee Why, 109%. It's actually done better growth. Dee Why, who would have thought? So the median price is 2.8. So if you bought for 1.4, It's doubled and a little bit more, but that little bit more is actually more than Manly. So the one thing I love, one, looking at this data, and two, one shows you it doesn't matter. A lot of people always say, oh, it's just the rich getting richer. Now, if you bought in the inferior suburb Dee Why, you've still
Hey,
made massive growth, actually better growth than Manly. It's like in
same,
commercial
same.
property, same, but that's really good. So,
105, 107,
yeah,
103, same, same.
but the message to people out there is don't be whinging about I can only afford this. It's about getting into the market, and we're not seeing like a discrimination in price growth that is it's only the wealthy suburbs going up.
Yeah,
It's what I'm saying, or rising tides raise all ships. Like the whole
yeah.
market is going up.
Oh, I
Very
love that.
commercial property where it doesn't matter if you buy for $100,000, you're looking for
Yeah,
that 6% return, or $10 million, you're getting that 6% return. And that's the
yeah.
beautiful thing about property, that it's almost equal opportunity for everybody. Everyone's starting at a different price point. You might be starting off at Dee Why, medium price level, or a lower, but it's all going up together. So I think that's very powerful
I think
for
lesson
people to
one,
understand out there.
premium suburb doesn't mean premium capital growth.
Yes.
I think lesson
Now,
one. I
yep.
learned that lesson. Lisa was from the east, I was from the north, and we brought the kids up in the east, bought in a great suburb. And then I looked in average suburbs in the north, and over 20 years, they did so much better. It was like
Yeah.
Vaucluse compared to Narrowena, and Vaucluse and Narrowena smashed Vaucluse. And it was like, wow, over 20 years. No, and going into it, I knew it as well. Being an agent, you see data, and you go, okay, that's what. But it was a great education for the kids and lifestyle for us. So yeah, but capital growth, yeah, did
But
premium does not mean yeah,
no. But where we're seeing the massive potential is people down. So with massive property prices have doubled and doubled and doubled. So that means it won't be affordable for a lot of
every
people,
10
those
years.
houses that once
Yeah,
were. But remember this,
yeah,
people downgrade the property, not the postcode. So where we see a lot of potential growth is, let's say, your Dee Why units. Dee Why units in the same decade has only gone up 53%, with a median price of 1.1. Now,
that's
historically,
huge.
over the last 30 years, units and houses have been the same. We've never
Always
seen this big gap,
50, 70.
gap.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this tells me one or two things. Either houses are going to fall 50%, or units are
Mm,
going to come up 50%.
mm,
And betting on the housing market is like betting on the house at the casino. The house always wins. The property
yeah.
market continues to grow. Now, and that's just not Dee Why. If we look at Manly as well, just quickly,
And the
let's see
units.
Manly units, 10 years, units, 67%. So there's still a good 33% growth. Well, actually, because the units were 105, there's nearly 40% growth those units still have to do in the next couple of years, which is a phenomenal opportunity.
Yeah, and they've whacked in a couple of bigger new. They're not building the stinky old stuff. They're building super premium in Manly, so that sort of pushes that unit median up a little bit. But it sort of makes sense because if you were like we had interest rates at 1 high 1%,
Yeah,
like
because was like
not
1.7, didn't it? Some people got.
not long ago, 2%, just under 2%, not long ago. So it would make sense that people amped up and went large,
Yeah,
and they bought houses. It makes total sense. It makes sense that they left units behind.
yeah,
Now, for people out there, and this is what's scary, and I don't like to say, but units are cheap if you consider that capital growth has been double every 10 years for the last 50 years.
mhm,
Units are underperforming, houses have overperformed just a little bit. That number got to 125%. Now it's at 105, by the way, the last couple of years for houses. but units have underperformed severely. So here we go. I know you think expensive is expensive for units. If you change your mindset and think expensive for units is actually cheap, I think it could be the good attitude to have. Get in there, buy, and I reckon units are going to go ballistic in the next 3 years. And I've been saying it over and over. Quote this now, 2026. I think there's going to be huge growth across most parts of Sydney. The only parts where I don't think you'll see good growth, Michael, we discussed it before. What do you reckon? Where are
Yeah,
the unit
you've got to.
suburbs that are going to suffer?
Yeah, like the two numbers I've just read out there showing you Dee Why, your Manly, is when you've just got natural forces with the free market of the property industry. Yep. But where you've got to be wary as buyers is when you have sort of an oversupply or that artificial influences onto the property market. We know back in the day, or I'm sure it's still out there were suburbs because there was so much development going on where the banks wouldn't lend because it was so high risk. You had suburbs where historically there was 500 units and you've got DA approval and construction for another 5,000 being built. That's where it can really sway the numbers and have that risk. But that's why it's important to look at the numbers like we've done, but also look at the suburb itself. One thing we love about Dee Why is it's got 10,000, well, nearly probably 11,000 dwellings now, 10,000 units. Like 5 years ago, there were two of the biggest developments, or three of the biggest developments ever in Dee Why. You had Meriton, 360 units, Carlisle, 80 units, Osprey, 120 units. Most suburbs, that would have been the amount of units the whole suburb had. But Dee Why was able to absorb all those apartments and still grow. That is massive.
Well, there was already 9,000 units in the suburbs, so it was nothing.
But you look at, say, Brookvale, it's got 1,000 units. And a lot of people, even who are local to the Northern Beaches, don't realise how big the density is in Dee Why and Manly to absorb those units. But let's say if you're trying to take these principles we've discussed today to your area, that's a big thing to look at, the density and if there's many developments on the horizon, because that can really slow down your growth. Supply and demand. If there's 10 people wanting one orange, that orange has got some value. But if you now have 100 oranges and only 10 people, different story.
Yep. So if you look at Parramatta, I think they've done 20% capital growth in 10 years. And if you look at Mascot, again, the performance of those suburbs, why? It's because the stock in the suburb has gone up by 2x, sometimes 4x over 10 years. That's the amount of supply dropping into the grid.
4.4% Mascot units, 4.4%.
Compared to Dee Why, 50%.
Yeah.
That is, there you go. Supply is the enemy of capital growth. Too much supply. So that's probably the fundamental thing that'll hold back everyone. So stay away.
Yep. I think that's it. We cracked it.
It's a show.
Buy units in Dee Why. Or Manly.
Have a great day. Thanks, Michael Bergio. Cheers. Bye.